Good morning, afternoon or evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back on this magnificent Monday for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update. And as always, around 1 p.m. UK time, we like to drop an update just like this one to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space, but also the broader markets. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this video. There is so much going on. It can often be hard to keep up with everything. So if you're not already subscribed to this channel, do consider becoming one. We're going to be starting the video off with some price action on Bitcoin. I'm going to be showing you guys that Bitcoin on a smaller time frame, we're going to be going into the hourly time frames, is setting up for continuation. Of course, Bitcoin today is at 90K. We've said who's going to get to 100K first, Allincrypto or Bitcoin. We're currently at nearly 95,000 subscribers. Do me a favor, guys, hit that subscribe button. Then we're going to be talking about retail. Is retail re-entering the cryptocurrency space? I'm sure many of you can be a barometer for this, as your colleagues, your friends, your family might be ringing you up knowing that you're interested in crypto and probably been shunned for a large part of the last couple of years and asking you what's currently taking place. So we will be looking at that through the lens of Google Trends. Also in regards to some on-chain metrics. So transaction volume under $100,000 has now hit a 3-year high. Very indicative of retail returning. Of course, one of the greatest investors of all time has just came out and announced that he has 5x'd his holdings in Bitcoin through BlackRock's ETF IBIT, which has seen record inflows. The Trump pump is a real one. Then we're going to be talking about some news out of Poland. They have an election coming up, and the next Polish Prime Minister is now proposing from his own mouth, or his Twitter account at least, that Poland should create a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And we've spoken about this arms race that we are on the starting line of as it relates to the cryptocurrency industry. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into it all. And let's start things off with some price action. We've given a number of technical patterns that gave us confidence in regards to the direction that Bitcoin's price was moving in. And we've said, and we were assessing this pullback that you've been in since March, and we said this was just, or is, a pullback. We know that factually now, in what is a broader uptrend. Not only are you adhering to trend structure, an uptrend structure, higher highs and higher lows, we also have a concession of technical targets that see you go to the upside. We also had one of the smaller targets, this sort of symmetrical triangle pattern that ultimately took you to 84K, and we've shot past there. And today, we are currently forming, we're going to go right down to the hourly time frame. Let's do a 4-hourly. In fact, let's go even lower. Let's go to a 2-hourly. Bitcoin is potentially setting up once again for a move to the upside. You can see this is very much a bull pennant on a bull pole, and ultimately I think this is going to set up broad continuation. This could ultimately take you towards a sort of 97-ish range, 98 range, and I actually think it's quite likely that before the year's out we might see a $100,000 Bitcoin price. And of course, this is on the back end of all the unbelievable news that we've been getting. Of course, we're seeing altcoins go absolutely crazy. A lot of people very salty, and I assume that's because they don't hold the altcoins that are doing well. Altcoins like Algo, altcoins like HBAR, XLM, XRP, Cardano, people very upset about the sort of price action that we're seeing. I always say this, people are hypocrites, including myself, and we always see that represented in the markets. You know, people don't want other people to win. And I guess a large part of that is human nature, and it can't be helped. And being human is what makes us, I think, in many ways weak, but also so great. So we are expecting continuation for Bitcoin on the shorter time frames. Remember, this is a 2-hourly pattern that ultimately might take it towards the sort of high 90s. So we're currently at 90. I think you're going to see a run perhaps to sort of 96, 97K in the coming weeks. There's not a lot of economic data this week that we have to contend with. And of course, on the larger time frames, you guys all know the score. You know the plan, you know the score. It's just a case of allowing it to take place, to come to fruition. And I very much think we are on the cusp of that. And we're seeing the altcoin market look spectacularly. Obviously, we've done a lot of analysis in regards to technically where we think the likes of the total market cap, of course, total 2, total 3, and others is going. We've looked at ETPs. We've looked at so many things, and it all confirms the broader direction of this space. And actually, when it comes to some of the altcoins that we've mentioned, they're just on the start of their journey. Lots of content coming out in regards to those over the coming weeks. What I want to do now is discuss potentially retail's participation back in the space. So largely, if you look at the altcoin sector, it's still very much basing. Some have had their first kind of wake-up moves. And I think that's been largely institutionally driven because retail, and we've looked at this through the lens of Google Trends, largely isn't here yet. Let's go back to the sort of 5 yearly. This is where retail was and has been. And this chart very much looks just like, including the sort of retail interest coming back, most altcoin charts out there, the likes of Bitcoin, Sol, and you could argue ETH. Solana probably more so have been real institutional favorites. And if you look at why their price is where it is, it's pretty much solely due to institutional involvement. And we said the bad news is that retail isn't here. The good news is that retail isn't here because they're still yet to come. And we've seen this real uptick in regards to what we would describe as retail interest as it relates to Google Trends. And we also have news, and this is some sort of on-chain metrics, that retail investors are coming to Bitcoin. Transaction volume under $100,000 hits a 3-year high. This is a very, very positive sign. We're going back here to sort of 2021's participation, and ultimately we're going to see, I believe, retail come back in a big way, certainly on all the sort of hype-driven news, etc., etc. A lot of retail will be getting into certainly these altcoins post-pump. We like to be in pre-pump, and that's why we are technical analyzers. So retail is largely what's going to drive certainly the altcoin space, at least initially, until we get over that regulatory hurdle, which is very much going to happen now that we have a new presidency. Some other interesting news coming out today is in regards to perhaps one of the greatest investors of all time. This is Paul Tudor Jones is now a top 10 holder of IBIT. So billionaire investor Paul Tudor Jones has increased his fund's Bitcoin allocation by 5 times to 159 million through BlackRock's ETF, according to an SEC filing. There is a kind of race now to get Bitcoin, not just from an investor point of view and a fund point of view, but also from a country's point of view. This is a candidate, a Polish presidential candidate. I'm not going to try and say his name. He owns Bitcoin and has now essentially said, this is his Twitter account, that Poland should create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. If I become president of Poland, our country will become a cryptocurrency haven with very friendly regulations, low taxes, and a supportive approach for banks and regulators. BTC to the moon. Very interesting. And we spoke about this arms race as it relates to Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is to find its role in the world as a global store of value, an alternative one to the monetary systems, there's going to be a race to essentially have control over that, or at least a large part of it. And it doesn't just stop there. We're going to see nations back certain cryptocurrencies in a bid, in a similar fashion to backing an athlete at the Olympics, to essentially see them maintain dominance technologically utilizing distributed ledgers, because distributed ledgers are going to implement themselves in pretty much every facet of our lives, and we're seeing the confirmation of that all. It is an amazing time to be alive. It's an amazing time to be in the cryptocurrency space. We've got lots of altcoin content to share with you. We do think Bitcoin potentially is looking for a run towards 100K. My personal thoughts are you're likely going to see 100K before Christmas. I very much think that. And this is always the trap of when a bull market starts, is people always get a little bit too timid. And I think caution should be applied to the markets under the right context. People always get very timid when you see these big moves for altcoins. They think, okay, they must come down. And actually, if you look at historically how bull markets work, certainly crypto ones, that train, once it's left the station, really gets going. And you can't, unfortunately, run after it after a certain point. So there is this smaller pattern for Bitcoin that I think is likely going to take it towards the sort of high 90s, so potentially 97-ish K. I don't think it's going to be that far-fetched to see it push through 100. Certainly if we see continuation on news. We looked at a lot of news yesterday in regards to new SEC chairs. One of them actually was a high-ranking member of the H-Bar Foundation. We'll be doing a video on that later on today. We also looked at potential new treasury candidates. One is a massive Bitcoin advocate and owns hundreds of Bitcoin. There's just so much bullish news. This space is really sort of, it's been needing it. It's been setting up for it. and is now appreciating on the back end of it. So we'll see what Bitcoin does. Interesting to see personally how miners open. Retail very much coming back into the space according to Google Trends and, of course, on-chain metrics. One of the greatest investors of all time has 5x'd his Bitcoin exposure through his trust. And Poland are now entering the Bitcoin arms race, and we do think this is going to spread to altcoins more broadly. That's it from me, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to love and leave each and every one of you on that note. If you're not already subscribed, do consider becoming one. Also, now's the time to join the Patreon. Lots of very happy Patreon members. We're making money, guys. If you want to check out my portfolio, you want weekly meetings with me to keep you sort of your hand very steady through what can be turbulent times, do consider becoming a Patreon. We're going to be capping that for the early bird tier at 500 members. We're not far off that at all. And then it will probably jump by about 20% on a monthly basis. And then, of course, we'll look to implement yearly subscriptions that will also include the courses and things like that we've been working on and sort of trialing out with some of the already existing Patreons. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. Have a magical Monday, and I'll see you all in the next one.